the reason I brought this up and the reason I reached out to you to talk about this,
Yeah.
there was a few things that kind of all lined up, and I was like, I should get to that guy's perspective.
Let's do it.
Number one was I've had now three different technology side of the business executives, CTO, VP, director level, complain that they don't know how to communicate effectively with the rest of the C-suite or the people above them in the org chart, right? And I figured that you've probably done or heard a pitch or two in your life. Maybe just a few.
Somewhere along the way, I've heard of this stuff. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. And so I think you're uniquely situated to talk about it. What has worked and what hasn't worked. Just if nothing else, because I'm going to bet that of all the people that I know, you've got more volume than anybody.
I'm happy to share what I've learned at the circus.
Awesome.
Let's do it.
Awesome.
So this will probably be a more focused, tighter, shorter episode, right? This is like 30-minute kind of feel.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see where it goes.
It's organic.
Yeah, it's organic. And so, we'll see what happens as always. Yeah. So so quick background, for folks who don't know Steven, he spent a whole lot of years in the movie industry, doing lots of things around movies, including producing them, which means A, he had to listen to pitches, but B, he also did a lot of pitches. Right. And the fact that he's a software guy now is, I think, a bonus for the rest of us.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Let's think of it that way.
Yeah. I like that. That's my story anyway. So, like, ballpark volume wise, before, or when you were still in the movie business, how many pitches do you think you did about movies?
Well,
where you were the one presenting?
Let's do a little back of the napkin math. So,
sure. Okay.
From the period of time that I was like coming up through the ranks, right? Where you're an assistant, you're a low-level development person. You're hearing a lot of pitches, but they're mainly people pitching you as the gatekeeper to try to get to the person who can actually do something, right?
Okay. So yes. Perfect.
They're soft pitching you. So you get excited. You go, oh, I want to introduce you to my boss, who's a vice president of the studio or something like that sort of thing, right? Yep. In those where it's like a low-level sort of thing, well, maybe 5-10 a week, people are kind of like, hey, about this idea, read me the script, or can I tell you my idea? Right. So there's that. Then when I was in a formal pitch receiving capacity, right? That is, hey man, I'm like a senior executive at this production company, the studio, or at the studio. It's your job. Like, you are hearing pitches, buying a few, developing them, getting some movies made, rinse and repeat, right?
Okay. Right.
So in that capacity, you're probably hearing formally 2 or 3 a day, right?
Okay.
And there are some days when it's like, hey man, there are some weeks when I'm on location, like I'm shooting a movie, like I'm not going to hear any pitches today. We're shooting, right? So let's block out some months for that where there is nothing. So hundreds a year, I would guess, just back of the napkin, and across 10, 15 years, thousands. Then when I got back into tech, into the startup world, that was very pitch heavy, because remember when I did my first tech company, we had already won an Academy Award for Independence Day. Like, raising that money was not like we had to go pitch the town. Like, we raised $15 million off the momentum of like, the movie's doing incredibly well. The visual effects won the Academy Award. Like, give us $15 million, right?
Right. Right.
And with the startup world, that was definitely oh man, really got to hone the pitch that I have to give, right? Because in the film days, a lot of people are coming in with pitches. Every now and then I choose 1 or 2 to go into our internal meeting at the studio and go, let me pitch you what I heard. I think we should buy this, right? 99% never make it to that level. So then Suddenly turn around, I'm the salesman, right? I'm the guy going, hey, I need $3 million. Let me tell you how we're going to like scale this thing, right? So that is, a long period of time of gathering momentum, contacts. Hey, Bill, your friend who's associate or partner at so and so VC, can you introduce me and get me a meeting, right? So there's a bunch of networking, and then when you get down to we got the deck, it's tight, we have our ideas, we have our team together. Yeah, you're hopefully out pitching like twice a day, some virtually, right? Some you're just going up and down Sand Hill Road or whatever city you're in. I mean, I was in obviously California SF at the time. So that's a period of time where you go, oh, we have to raise our seed round. Yes, we're going to get the checks from 5 people, but it's going to take 30 or 40 pitches to get those 5 checks of 500,000, whatever, right? So for each of those, raise $3 million, give or take like 100,000. That was maybe, let's say, another 50 pitches to yield that amount of money. Sadly, both those companies did not exit. There was not a Series A with either of them. There's only pre-seed and seed. I was, as we discussed before, like embarrassed because I had tried so hard and failed, right? But learned a lot about that, including what some of the storytelling skills that I learned in the film days really helped with raising the money, because it's like, oh, here are some ways of thinking about conveying this information. And I think when you reached out and you're like, hey, let's talk about communication, I was like, oh, I have some ideas on that. I'd be happy to share whatever they're worth.
Beautiful. Awesome. Yeah. So you've got the
long answer.
No, but I think for people that this is their first time hearing you.
Yeah, sure.
It helps to frame that you actually know what you're talking about.
The things, as they say, the things I have to share that are valuable for you, take them. The ones that are not, leave them.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I think I don't like your volume numbers are so far beyond what, like, your orders of magnitude more volume than anybody else that I know.
There's a lot of noise to find the signal. Yeah. It's not like a couple a year. It's like a couple a day.
So because of that, I think there's patterns that you recognize, right? That I'm nowhere near your volume, right? I wouldn't recognize that pattern for a while just because it's a singleton, right? But you've got the volume to all of a sudden go, oh yeah, 10% of the time this is going to pop up, good, bad, or indifferent, right? And I haven't gotten enough volume to be able to see, oh, 10% of the time this is going on, right?
Let us hope those listening at home can cull the valuable things from what we're going to talk about today.
Right. Yeah. So my hypothesis is that, and I mean, this is what I've seen in my experience in the tech world, right? Early in my career, I had a company founder who was really good about when I went and said, hey, I'd like to spend some money on blah. He would ask me a bunch of questions to understand fundamentally the ROI, right? And what I noticed over time was that he always asked me the exact same questions. And so what I started doing was and he would ask questions. And to begin with, the first meeting, I was like, dear God, I have no idea. Let me go figure that out. Right. Because
then you learned.
Then I learned, and I started packaging everything so that I'm like, oh, he keeps asking the same questions. I'm just going to do the homework in advance and walk in and have all the answers, right? I only have to meet him once. And generally speaking. And so the next company that I went to, I did all the homework. And so I went to go talk to the execs, and I'm like, here's all this stuff. And they just said yes.
Amazing.
And I said, oh, that's cool. And I didn't realize that was unusual until I had peers of mine who were like, we can't get anything from the execs. They will not pay attention to us. And I was like,
shall we unpack your process for getting the yes?
Sure.
I'm going to make a couple of guesses here. as I sit here in the bleachers of the studio audience listening to you, I'm going to make a couple guesses. One technique that worked pretty well was understanding your audience, right? Because all of us are starring on a movie called ourselves, right? Your CEO is not starring in a movie called Bill. You're starring in a movie. He's starring in a movie called Jerry or whatever, right?
Right, right.
So the moment in time you go, I am a supporting character in his movie. Let me understand the hero of this movie. That leads you to go, oh, when I walk into Jerry starring in his movie, he really is going to want to know about what's the time frame, how many head count do you need for this? What those questions were that you realized that was how you did it. So I would say one technique you use very successfully, which I will underline, is know your audience. It is Sun Tzu. The battle is won before it's fought, right? If you walk in there and you understand this way Jerry thinks and feels, fantastic. I'll give you an example just to make this colorful from my background, which is whether it is a partner at a venture firm or whether it's a studio executive. Before you go in to go say, hey man, I've got the next great social media food sharing delivery app with rides, whatever, or like, oh, this is the next rom-com sci-fi movie ever, whatever. You better know what has that person bought in the past. Like, oh, I invested in 3 photo sharing, food delivery, ride hailing apps in the past 5 years. They all tanked, right? You better know that, because that guy or girl is going to be like, well, my finger's a little burnt, Bill. Thanks for coming.
Right.
Yeah, or that executive is like, I just bought 3 sci-fi rom-coms last month. I can't have my entire slate be 3 sci-fi rom-coms, right? So you get to know that. You talk to the people in their life. If you don't know that partner or that, vice president of the studio, talk to agents. What is Puri hungry for? Oh, what he's been looking for is he wants to have his Gladiator. Oh, he wants to have his period, epic, drama, blah, blah, star vehicle, get a great director thing. Okay, I better walk in and go, guess what I have for you? Gladiator, right?
Right,
so
right.
The battle is won before it's fought. And what you're saying is, hey, man, I went in, I lost the battle, I studied why I lost it, and then I started winning battles because I walked in prepared.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what I found, to put another layer in that, was that it was easy to interview and because they're executives of the company, right? So it's easy for me to interview them and find out what their hot buttons are, what their drivers are, hear their language.
Yep.
If I was going to go pitch a VC or a studio executive, right, I probably wouldn't get the interview, but I would be able to hit the periphery around them and look up everything I can on the internet about them. Right.
Yep.
And Steven likes doing special effects for big sci-fi films.
Yeah.
I'm going to go talk to you, right? Because
listen to podcasts they've been on.
Listen to podcasts you've been exactly right. And so for me, it was easy to go and talk to them and figure out what their
what they're looking for, their internal landscape is.
Yeah, exactly. And then that gives me a lot of clue about how to structure the pitch, right? Yep. And to be in their to be the supporting character, them be the hero, right? Totally, yep. That's exactly it. The next piece was way back in the day. I ran across Guy Kawasaki's 10-20-30 frame for pitch decks.
Yeah.
And I started using that because it was super simple, and it was a really simple, consistent template for me. It helped me structure my thinking, and it put the data in bite-sized chunks for the audience. And the only mod I've done to that over the years is Oren Clough has some Oren Clough, KLAFF.
Oh, that's a new one to me. Okay,
yeah. He wrote a book called Pitch Anything.
Oh,
he raises money not in the movie, but he's an LA guy, he
right?
raises money for businesses. That's his job, is to go and figure out how to do big pitches.
Cool.
And he has some slight tweaks on Guy's original frame. And so I made some small tweaks, but pretty much it's been the same. Here's the problem. Here's what it's costing us, right? Here's how it's going to get worse as we go forward, because it's not going to get any better magically by itself.
Yeah.
Here is a solution with data to back up why it's a good idea, why we think this will be successful. Here's the cost, and here's the ROI. Is kind of roughly the way that I've always laid it out, right?
Solid structure, yeah.
And as long as the ROI is in the audience's framework, that seems to work.
And somewhere in there, it's obviously there's a notion of team. Like, this is why we're the guys to do it, or we're the girls to do it.
Right. Well, and it's always the way that I've done this has always been, I'm bringing this to the executives because I want money to buy something that's going to help my team operate better.
Yeah, sure.
Right. It's always about helping them operate better and the ROI of that, which almost always ends up being some version of they're more efficient, we're saving person hours. And person hours are, when you're talking software developers, it's real money.
Yes.
And so
I've replaced them all with Claude.
Okay. So maybe that's a little bit less money than the software developers are, but right. I think that was really helpful. And in some contexts, the ROI was really, oh, we're building this thing for the customers, right? And this will lubricate the team's ability to make that happen effectively.
Yeah, totally.
Customers and the sales team all win, right? And the more that I can pull in allies, the better that works.
Just like a movie,
Really?
Top of the second act, you have in that kind of movie structure, you have hero's world is threatened in the first act, change, disruption. End of the first act, oh God, do I rise to the challenge or not? Beginning of the second act, let me go from the Shire and go round up the other little characters, and we're going to go on a journey to Mordor. Yeah. So it's round up the allies, top of the second act with you.
Yeah. And so I guess my question would be, how parallel is that to how you did or heard pitches? Like, how
it's a super sound structure. Obviously, what you said has granular specifics about getting funding, getting technology done, right? So, but the idea of what you're saying, it is a universal thing of like, there is your ability to oppose, an opposing force, and this is how we're going to overcome it. I need your money to do this, and we'll get over this friction. I need, this director to do this so we can direct this movie and whatever it is. Yeah, with you. Yep.
Okay, cool. What am I missing?
I mean, at this point, what you're saying, I agree with all of it. And it's simply a question of like, oh, if someone has a specific use case, how do I specialize? How do I, tailor this to that specialized sort of use case?
Okay.
What you're saying totally works. I mean, that's the thing, is like, life is ultimately story. Story is drama. And drama is created because there's conflict. It is physics. I mean, the same sense, like in physics, you couldn't tell that time had elapsed if nothing moved, right? The way in which we know time elapses is because things move. If you were to try to determine the amount of time that elapsed when two particles, neither of them had moved at all, you couldn't know if it was infinity or if it was nothing, right? So there is, on a physical level, that sense of like, oh, because all these, whether you're talking about, waves of energy, or you're talking about particles, like they're all constantly in motion, colliding with each other, moving forward. And in that conflict of I'm trying to occupy the same, energetic space or physical space as something else creates, motion and entropy and all these things, right? But on a story level, stories are only interesting when there's conflict. If it's just like, hey, Bill and Steven hung out, they got along really well, there's not a lot there, right?
It's not a movie pitch. Oh, come on.
But it'd be good. Bill and Steven got along really well. They didn't fight, but the dinosaurs showed up to try to eat them. Oh, there's conflict now.
Okay, right, exactly. So,
They talk about in film, and obviously this goes back thousands of years. Aristotle and a number of people have written about these kind of structures, but you have fundamental conflicts. You have man versus himself.
Mm-hmm.
You have man versus man, and by man I don't mean a gender specific. I mean carbon-based life form, human, Homo sapien, right?
Right.
So you have man, person against himself, person against other person against society, right? Person against nature, cast away, something like that. It's like there are certain fundamental conflicts that are true to life. And it's how stories are structured. And without conflict, it's just inert.
Right. Yeah. It totally makes sense. Okay, so that communication was primarily upstream, right? The flip side to it is is parallel, right? Talking with peers.
Tell me what you mean by that.
People that are roughly speaking peers in the organization, right? Like one of the things that I used to do all the time was
in a hierarchy, there's you pitching up to get money to come down to you.
Right.
But then there's also having to get peers to buy into something.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So, use case, I was at a company a few years ago where they wanted me to re-architect this core set of internal tools for the company. Like, they were like, start from scratch, like from zero, start from zero in terms of building up. You got to solve the business problems, right? So I went to talk with all the people that I could possibly find who would be impacted, who were users, stakeholders, people who saw reporting coming out of it, like all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
To figure out what mattered to them, what was their world, what did their world look like? And then once we had started to come up with a solution, I kept checking back in with them to make sure that our idea made them happy. And in some cases it was, hey, I know we've had this business process, but I'm going to actually get the executives to buy off on a new business process because the old one, it's 10 years old and it's based on 15-year-old data. And that was then and this is now. And so I'm going to have to make this change. Are you guys okay with that? Right. So I'm getting allies again. Right. So then when I go and I talk to the C-suite, they go, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. And do all these people agree with you? And I can confidently say yes. Right.
And the way in which you understand, to extend that metaphor to them, the movie that they're starring in, the upstream or pitching up thing you talked about a moment ago, which is, okay, you know what? Maybe the CEO is just looking at earnings per share, market share, like huge things that the company win. Whereas when you go to pitch to your peer, there may be an element of like the company winning. There may also be a competitive element of like, oh, you're growing your department, you're taking resources away. It's a zero-sum game. I'm not going to have access to those resources. So you have to know in the movie in which they're starring, they may view scarcity. They may be like, but Bill, if you get the $1 million out of the, slush fund, I don't get the $1 million, right? So you have to be sensitive to that. Again, just understanding.
Yeah. Usually the way I try to frame it is they I do the research to figure out what their success metrics are.
Yeah.
The same as I did the executives. Right. And so I'm giving them the wins. Because usually we weren't competing for budget. It was, I'm giving them more efficiency, right? It's a slightly different version of I'm going to the CTO because I want money so I can make my team more efficient. I'm building tools to help them be more efficient.
Yeah.
And hopefully they're going to love it. Like that's the whole point why I'm talking to them, is to figure out what's the hot button, right?
Right.
And so is there an equivalent of that in, like, originally you talked about, before you were the decision maker, people would come and they'd like, hey, what do soft pitch you this idea, because
I'm
you're
just a gatekeeper. They want to get to someone else, but I'm the guy in front of someone else.
Right.
Yeah.
Which actually makes you critically important, right?
Right.
Like,
some people do that. Some people just like, get me more coffee.
right. But the reality is, you're the power behind the throne.
And yeah, I mean, there's a period of time I was the first assistant to the president of Paramount when I was learning the ropes, and it was a great like apprenticeship.
Right.
And I got to meet all the agents because they all knew if they wanted to get their, talent in to meet my boss, was at the studio. Like, I kind of determined who got on the schedule and who got Tom's really busy this month.
Right.
Tom's in Cannes. I don't know how it's going to work.
Yeah. Which means they should be all bringing you coffee.
Dude, I got so many gifts when I was the first assistant to the president of Paramount. My God, like, I don't drink anymore, but in those days it was just like wine, champagne, like all sorts of like massage, like Burke Williams massage, gift certificates, stuff like that, because they just want to know that, you know what? Oh, so-and-so is in town. I just signed this British actress. I think she could be the next Bond girl or whatever. Bond was not a Paramount franchise, but the next Mission Impossible girl or something. And just grease the wheels, man. You really want to get her in. They're not stupid. It's practical.
And that is a missing wisdom from the technology world.
You know what? There is a belief, I think, in Southern California, in Hollywood, that more things, they're more soft levers than maybe there are, because there are some. And I think there is a belief on the other side of the spectrum that more things are data driven than they actually are. Like, there's only so much you can metric out and optimize. Like, it is true, if you want to optimize something, you measure it. You should be data driven in many, many, many ways. But sometimes it's taken to the point of zero intuition, zero understanding of humanity.
Right.
And that's where you do get some people in the Valley who develop consumer facing stuff usually. And they just apply a little bit of like, you know what a human really wants?
Right.
I'll tell you. And then we'll test it. But you're not even thinking to test this because you're just trying to optimize the rounding of the pixel corners on the button. They don't want a button here.
Right.
Yeah.
So
anyway, just amusing from, the sidelines.
But it's really insightful though. Because most people, you've had a very unusual career.
True.
And, for somebody in the tech world. And so that gives you a very different set of insights. And then
it's one of the things I love to share, Bill, is just like when you see, a industry, a field that's known to be super creative and squishy, and then you've worked in another field that's super data driven and like rock solid, and across the two, you see like, oh, here's what works better here. Here's what works better there. Here's where one side could learn from the other.
Exactly.
Like, I'm very fortunate to have seen both, and man, successes and failures on both sides, to be like, oh, you know what I thought applied here actually doesn't, or, ooh, this worked really well and no one else was doing it because I just happened to have picked up that trick somewhere else,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So aside from agents, like, is there an equivalent in the movie world of high volume peer-to-peer conversation?
High volume peer-to-peer conversation.
Yeah.
Tell me exactly what you mean so I can answer the question you're asking, because I might not understand it.
And I'm asking this because I honestly don't know. And I don't want to, like, I'm like, I imagine they do, but then I'm like, I don't know. Like, so if you're a VP at Paramount, are you talking to, on a regular informal basis, all the other VPs. How many VPs are there at Paramount?
At most motion picture studios, at least when I left a few years ago, you had between 6 and 8 usually. So the way the studios is formatted, structured, is you have the studio slate, right? Hey, here are 300 things that could be a movie. Books we bought, video games we licensed, scripts we bought, pitches from stars that have a deal in the lot, right? And that slate of movies, sequels to franchises we own, right? That slate of movies is divided up among the executives at the VP level, SVP, EVP, VP, whatever, any flavor VP, right? So they may each have like 50 films on their slate, 30 to 50 films on their slate, and they're buying some and they're killing some others off and stuff like that, right? So you're responsible for getting those going. And then ultimately you have like, the chairman above you or chairperson who's green lighting, some and killing others, right? So each studio has kind of that. Now, I think the question you're asking, which I understand a little better now, is when you come up in film or in television, you come up because you have a network of people. Like it's almost like a graduating class from like high school or college, where mostly the apprenticeships are assistants, right? Who meet, and you meet the assistants that are going to end up all being, VPs and senior level agents with you. Like 8, 10, 20 years later, that was your crew when you're all answering the phone going, Bill Lennon's office, like cut to 10, 12 years later, and someone saying Stephen Puri's office for you, So right. Yeah, you have tracking groups where you share information. Like when you're an assistant, I was part of tracking groups that were like different assistants, different studios and production companies that you'd share information because there's so many hundreds of projects at any one time. To be part of like a Google group or something like that, where you're like, hey man, this script just went out. Who else has read it? Has anyone heard any heat on it around town? Are there any offers? And then, every studio lot has like 3 or 4 of your friends that are in that group that are like, oh yeah, man, it just came into Lorenzo's company and they're taking it into, Paramount or DreamWorks or whatever, right? So as you rise up, that still is your network, So when you're a vice president, like when I was at Fox, if there's something I'm really looking to buy and I'm trying to figure out what the landscape is, yeah, I have a friend at Warner Brothers, Alicia, like, is there heat on this over at your studio? Are you guys gonna make an offer? Is this gonna be a bidding war? Because I can kind of figure out my appetite. Like we would maybe pay $1 million for this book. We're not going to pay 3 or 5 or just some sort of crazy number that gets in the trades. It's like, okay, no, we're not doing it here. But I heard, Tendo over Disney's is going to make a bid on it. Oh, let me call Tendo. There's a little bit of like peer to peer, as you would say, kind of information sharing. You're competitive, but at the same time, like you're all kind of in it together. And for a long time, the business was expanding. So there was an abundance. There was a lot of food to eat. The past 10 years, obviously, film and entertainment have been contracting, layoffs, production deals being cut, fewer people going to the movies because they're on social media, they're playing video games, they're, in virtual reality. So it's a different world now. It's a little more scarcity driven than abundance.
That's okay. So that's fascinating because what I'm hearing is that at the most fundamental level is that your whole world in the movie side was all about networking, but in the technology world, it's by and large completely not. And
I will say this though, let me interrupt you because I don't think it's exactly what I'm saying. What I'm saying is in the tech side, especially with B2C kind of stuff, like with B2B, there's often long tails where it's like, hey man, I've been at Salesforce for 10 years. I have an idea for a competitive product. I'm gonna leave Salesforce and I already have all my contacts. I know who will buy it. I know that, so there's that, right? But with B2C, you're often doing something very much like a movie where it's like, hey, we're going to spend a bunch of money. We're going to release this out there and hope it gets really rapid mass adoption from people we don't know. We're just going to see it, love it, share it with their friends, see it on social media. It'll go viral, right? So there's that betting mentality, right? So that said, there is absolutely an amount of luck and, gambling that goes on if you're investing in that sort of thing. So many of those decisions may be justified rationally, but they're made irrationally through relationships. There's a lot of great writing on this. This is not an original thought, which is that at that level, when there's so much risk, there's so much unknown, you're really making a decision emotionally or irrationally based
Mm-hmm.
on, do I really believe this founder? Do they have, the right stuff? And then later you justify that using logic, going, well, their TAM really matches the TAM of this other investment we made that paid off. And they seem to have this competitive advantage. And they did hire the guy from Apple that designed the screw on the Vision Pro. So they're probably going to get the screw. You know what I mean? You justify it. Is the screw really going to be the reason it is successful or not? No. Right.
Right.
I think that's how a lot of that goes, especially at the early stages, especially with B2C.
Right. Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think part of what I'm hearing is that in the movie world, the networking is just like water. It's like nobody even thinks about it. And on the, at least here in the Valley,
Correct.
it's not, that's, and there, I've been part of a variety of different networking organizations here.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And in the long run, they always struggle with growth and they always, it's always a introverts don't want to meet other introverts.
You hit the nail on the head. Thank you for saying there is an elephant in the room. Let me point it out.
Yeah. and the negative impact on their careers, like people just don't talk about it.
Agreed.
And I think for me that was a significant enabler of my career path, was that I recognized early on that my social anxiety was a problem for what I wanted to do. And so I had to do something about it.
There you go. Okay.
And at the time, I didn't recognize it. What I was doing was unusual.
Yeah.
At all. I'm like, I got a problem. I got to fix it. And, kind of that was what I did.
Yeah.
But I also noticed that it exposed a lot of opportunity space that I hadn't, one, I wasn't previously aware of, and two, it also exposed part of what I realized was I was seeing opportunities other people were blind to. That's just because of the network effect, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and it, like it was because I was talking to peers and that, turned into other conversations.
Which is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. It was I think that is a blind spot for people in the engineering world. Because a lot of people come into it because they're kind of introverted and they don't want to talk to people and they think they can just work on a computer all day. And no one tells them that you actually need to have conversations. That's kind of an important part of the game, really.
True thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
This has been quite the rollicking conversation. I'm curious where we go from here.
Awesome. Great. I'm glad to hear. What about down the org conversations? Because, like all the things that my teams have built, I just help them go in the right directions and do the research to figure that out. Right.
Yeah.
Your world of movies, you've got way more volume of people than how I think of, or how I've ever worked with technology teams, right? How do you effectively do that? What's your
Oh, yeah. I wish I were more of an expert in this. What I can tell you is I believe a couple of things have served me, and there are also places where I am also fallible. So something I believe strongly is that some of the problems when you look at your team, you go, why isn't it gelling? They can be solved by your improving practices. They also sometimes go back to hiring. And I think that as a leader, you have to set a very clear vision, an agenda. Like, hey, we are here to cure cancer. We are here to create cold fusion that's affordable, whatever it is, right? Hopefully that inspires the right people to want to work there.
Yep.
And you have to set a culture. This is how we treat each other. This is how we treat our customers. This is how we treat our competitors, you know? And if you do those and you attract the right people, they understand the culture, they're mission aligned, then if you're doing things that are generally, this is helping us toward cold fusion or toward, some sort of oncological, breakthrough, then great. In terms of like how to run staff meetings and things like that, how to, disseminate information. I mean, I think there are people who are better experts than I to speak about that exact thing.
I was so hoping you had like
all the secrets I wrote down on that napkin that I left at the table the other day at lunch.
Yeah.
Did you pick up the napkin? And all the secrets were on there. Bill, you're killing me. I know. Somewhere there's a waitress who's like, this is gold.
Right. She's actually writing it into a script.
And she's right. Which will become a ride-hailing, photo-sharing food delivery app.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Okay. Cool. No, but I think that downward communication is based on the data that I've seen. Yep. I think that is the hardest thing for most people to do.
It is challenging because you have, again, an array of people who may have varying agendas. And
right.
So many problems go away when you're aligned, when your incentives are aligned. If you want the same thing, you're generally going to behave a certain way.
Right.
It just solves so much. And if you're not aligned on that, man, it's hard to body English your way into,
Yeah. I think that insight that you had earlier about everybody's the hero in their own movie, and you have to figure out how to, I think that perspective aligns in all three directions. If you can make the people that report to you or that dotted line or whatever it is, if you can make them the heroes in their own movies, then you can get anything you want.
Yep.
I think that's the trick is figuring out, what's the character they're trying to play? What are they trying to do?
Yeah. What's their movie?
And then get them winning in that. Yeah.
That is a great note to end on. That is the best thing I can share.
Okay. I think that's awesome wisdom. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks for calling up. Like, happy to chat anytime.
Yeah. No, because I'm always looking for perspectives and pattern recognitions that are outside of my own experience.
Yep.
One, because I'm like, oh, it's brand new and it's totally different and it's completely, because so many things you've done are completely outside my world. But also, oh, wait a minute, that pattern applies in two different places. And making somebody the hero of their own movie, it's a cross context strategy. And I'm like, oh, I love the way you said that too. So I'm going to use that from now on.
Please do. Anything here is valuable. Take it, run with it.
It's awesome. I think, you said to run with it at the beginning, and I'm going to do that. I like it. Cool. This has been awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Hope anyone who's listening, this was valuable.
I hope so too. Thanks, man.
Cool.
I appreciate it.
Day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Bye.
We'll see you.